Today it's announced that GDP was revised. Yes, it was revised basically after 24 hours worth of actual trading time. It was revised down almost a whole percent. This basically explains why you were getting some of that downside pressure exactly when that was released. Now, when we go back over here to SPY, you can actually see what was happening. This morning, you open up with a little bit of downside, gapping down, and then from that, you come all the way back up almost immediately. When we go over to NQ, looking at Nasdaq, you open up around this range at 830, and then you actually break and make new highs, pushing above that 13,000 area we mentioned in the previous video, which was so interesting that we were talking about. We talked about if you get above that range, you're very bullish. We also mentioned on Friday as well, if you start to push down going into Monday morning and start bouncing, you're very strong. What does that indicate? That bulls are having control because they're letting you come down and then they're establishing their strength right at market open. So you actually got that exactly. Right at market open, you had a little bit of a downturn for that last hour and 30 minutes before market open, and then pure bullish volume kicking in, really dominating more so than Friday. If you really like what was happening, shout out to J-Room for pointing that out. So you push up to about 13.1. Now around this time right here, that's when you get the bad news from the ATL GDP. Now that's what I want to kind of talk about here for a second, and then we're going to talk about the overall charts here. So when we get into this is where I kind of look at this and I'm like, look, we are expecting this upward movement. I still look at the market bullish right now, and I'm going to get into exactly why here in a second, but I still look at this for an upside test. I'm still looking at the same targets overall on my Nasdaq and SP500, but when I'm looking at this, it makes you come to the conclusion and really sit there and say, and further hammers home the idea that you can't really be swinging because you don't know what's going to be announced. I mean, literally, Friday, this comes out at 2.1%, and Monday morning, they come out, I believe, at 1.2%. So that was the kind of bad news right there. You can also see this was on Twitter. I posted it there, and it also was posted in Discord news. So that was the bad news going on here. Now, going into NASDAQ, you have that drop, and why am I still quote-unquote bullish here? I'm going to go to the 15-minute here for a sec. As you're dropping here, what happens? You kind of start getting a little bit of a bounce. And we're going to talk about exactly why I like this so much. Before we get into that, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every day, I'm giving you the charts as I see them, unbiased. I'm coming at you exactly how I'm trading and showing you exactly what I'm looking at. We had a lot of great opportunities today. We had really good trades this morning, and then we kind of had a little bit of them get stopped out in the middle of the day. I'm going to talk about exactly what happened, exactly what I was trading, and exactly what you need to be watching going into tomorrow. So please consider subscribing. It helps out tons. Also, the Facebook group is down below, absolutely free if you're not ready to join Discord, which I 100% recommend because this is 100% free. Going back here. Now, what I want to point out very quickly is one, this is a major resistance, 13,000, huge level. So I want to come back and show you what happens when we hit these critical areas, if you will. Now, we're going to go back to some previous dips. So when we're dipping in the past, I'm going to take off some of these indicators just so it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. When you're looking at previous dips and you really start dropping, what happens? Okay, so when we know that the quote-unquote bounce is over, you see immediate sell volume, and it's really not followed by any buyers. So we dip here, boom. Dip here, boom. We can come back further. We dip here, there's no real buying for at least 3 days, and then you bounce. Dip here, there's no buying for 2 days, you bounce. You dip here, there's no buying for 3 or 4 days, then you bounce. So you're getting day-long selling. When sellers show up, they show up. Now, as we come back to this level, this is the 4-hour chart. Why am I looking at this in a bullish sense? This is the 4-hour chart, so you know. In my opinion, looking here, I have to say, you can come out and extend. You're still making. What are you making? Higher lows, people. You're still making them. So you're continually making those higher lows. Sellers step in, but then you also see them lose their strength shortly after at the first sign of support, 12.9, and you bounce back to 13. So we're looking in here. I'm just going to go back to the 5 minutes. I can just go intraday to really give you a good viewpoint of what's happening here. So you're still seeing those higher lows being made. You're definitely seeing the resistance at 13,000. But as you consolidate at these ranges, in my opinion, I have to continue to remain bullish as you consolidate at these high levels. It makes me believe you're going to see that break. And if you're wondering where are my targets for Nasdaq, 13.5, 13.6 roughly. That's just where I see us going. And if you're wondering why do I think that, go back to the 1 hour chart. If you didn't watch yesterday's video or the video before that, every time you've broken in this range before, right here, roughly, just rough drawing right here. I'm just going to highlight this for a second. Every time you come to this range, what happens? You get a test of 13 and you get a test back to 12.9. So when you hit 13, you're coming back down. When you go to 12.9, 13, you're coming back to 13.5. So it's just happened multiple occasions so far. So coming back to this range where we're at, you still look good. You're still moving decent. Looking at some of the earnings that happened today, most earnings ended up beating today, but the big earnings, in my opinion, which I mentioned here in the Facebook group as well, is you had all these coming out today, a dev and a lot of oil companies. Those were very important. But something like Pins, I don't think it's that important. It's not moving the market too much right now, and their earnings weren't that great, but they're still up almost $5 right now, killing it. We go over to something like Devon. Their earnings beat, they're pretty flat because it's oil, and you don't really know what commodities are going to do these days, but they're still beating across the board. And you may be flat here, but they're all beating. So it's still showing the strength of the overall economy. Now, tomorrow you have Caterpillar at open. It's going to be a big one. That's a very big Dow stock. Uber, don't care about it, to be honest. PayPal will be important on the close tomorrow. AMD is the most important. You need to be watching AMD. It is the most important stock having earnings tomorrow, in my opinion. That or Caterpillar, one of those. Oxy also very important, but it's an oil company, so I don't expect too much happening there. So going into that, what happened with AMD today? We mentioned this yesterday. We mentioned that Discord, we have those $100 calls, and AMD went nothing but up. So this is one of the trades we talked about a lot in the Discord today. Absolutely killed it, went crazy. Congratulations, Jay Ream. Another killer call out here. So we do love that. I love what's happening here. I love the movement that's happening, and I do believe these will hit 100 before earnings, most likely tomorrow. It's just very likely. I just think it's going to happen. So going into tomorrow, what am I looking at? I'm still bullish. You come out and you're above 13,000. It's the same thing for me right now. As long as you're above 13,000, I believe you're very, very bullish. When you're in this range right here, I have to believe you're going to continue making higher lows until you stop, but you're still have a lot of support. And right now, the support that's holding is roughly this 12.9 region right here, which you could argue previous highs. I don't really want to say that because you're definitely below that range, but it's right about here where you're holding about 12.92 down to 12.85, 12.87. And you continue to hold this range and you're making those higher lows. So you still look strong. You're still trying to push up. Despite sellers stepping in, you still look like you have full control with the bulls and they want to continue pushing you up. Now, again, I want to make this very clear. I said in my last video, I'm going to say it again in this video and say it probably in tomorrow's video. This move to the upside, in my opinion, is a short-term move. This is not long-term. This is not for next month. This is just a short-term move. I'm looking to get that break to the upside, 13.5, in the short term. That's what I'm looking at. I'm going to be very crystal clear about my statement and how I see this moving. I don't think we've solved the major problems. I continue to think GDP will miss and probably show negative growth. However, we have to go based on the information that they're giving us. So when we look at this, that's what I'm looking at here. So going back to the S&P, looking at SPY, you're trading in a clear range. It's never really been more clear than this. I marked this out on Discord. I'm going to make it very, very clear here. So going into about middle of the day, I got stopped out of my Google trade and I got stopped out of a QQQ trade. And so what I basically said was this about right at noon. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to trade right now. I just want to be out of this. I just want to not worry about this. Come back tomorrow and see what happens. So what I said was you're probably going to test your lows in the day on SPY and QQQ. This was at noon. Shortly after, around 1 o'clock, you come down, you test those lows, and you start bouncing on Qs. Again, I mentioned, though, that I am watching to see the reaction that we're getting. Because right now they're saying, yes, GDP, they've revised it to not negative growth, still positive, but it's on the downside where it's coming down further. But I want to wait and see what happens from earnings because earnings are going to continue to set the tone. Because even though they're minimizing the gain on GDP, they are still saying, and the economy is still saying based on these earnings, that we have some upside, and that's what's going to carry us most likely if we're ever going to get that breakout on NQ. Because as we can look right now, NQ and ES are detached from each other. And what do I mean by that? S&P futures are definitely lagging behind NQ. NQ remains at that resistance. ES is definitely a little bit further down. When you look at SPY, you can see at this mid-range coming back to Qs. You're at the mid-range, but you're definitely at a higher point, in my opinion, and above key resistances. That's why you're holding these previous lows so well here on Qs. Holding those so well there, going over here to SPY, you are not. That's the very important thing to know. You're sitting at them right now, but Qs definitely look a lot more bullish right now. So overall, again, this is what I'm watching. I'm not clear on a trade right now because right now I'm pretty liquid. I have no open options overnight. I'm not sitting in anything. What I do like again for tomorrow, if we come out above 13,000, what am I looking at? Out of the gate, I'm going to be looking at AMD. Very, very strong. Love what I'm seeing here. Looks incredible. Wants to get to $100. I like it a lot. NVIDIA, I still think it has more upside. Still looks great. Very positive. Looking at Tesla. Now, I meant to edit this in yesterday, but I accidentally forgot because it was near the end of the video and I had to swipe it back in. But Tesla ended up losing this level, and Tesla's not showing a lot of strength really here when we look at the broad scale market. Now, you can see this is our key monthly level because today was a monthly open, and look what happened. You flip it, you reject it, and you push back down. So overall in Tesla, unless you start getting some crazy buying on NQ, which easily could happen, I do see this coming down to 870 to 860. If it breaks below that, most likely testing the 820, 821 range down here. Maybe 826, that was a very key level as well. So watch this area down here if this one does end up breaking, about 860, 870. So I do see this most likely getting a test, just in my opinion. But if you get back above the monthly, I would immediately start trading this back towards the upside. So crystal clear, what am I expecting? Right here, you have your overall. Right here, we have your trend. Going on your higher lows you're trying to make. Really, you're not making higher lows. You already broke out of that trend. But I'm looking to see if this breaks down. If this breaks down, you're looking for a shorting opportunity down to 870, 860. If you get above this region, you're looking for a retest and then a long on that retester right there. That's what I'd be looking at on Tesla. Now, coming back to SPY, because again, this was the big winner on the day. This was about another 50, 60% made on this trade right out of the gate. I'm trading this zone. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this zone down here. I haven't even touched this overall levels. They've remained the same. And I'm watching this key level right here about where those lows were made. I want to continue to see higher lows being made. But if you come down to the 409 to roughly 409, 4920, this is a buy in my opinion because I do think you're trending in this range as we speak. And that's why it was easy to call for in Discord as you're range trading here. Because as you're here, this is what we're looking for. We're looking to see if you're having to trade this range, then you need to take the best opportunity to win here, which is longing at the lows and getting short opportunities at the highs. That's what I'd be looking at. Now, me personally, I just don't like the shorting opportunity here. I just am very bullish. So I'm more in favor of only taking those longs right now and being pretty patient, sitting on my hands, waiting for best opportunities specifically for myself. Now, coming back to NQ, just really quickly wrapping this up for you guys. You're sitting in a pretty neutral area. I don't know how much movement we're going to get tomorrow. That's why I was pretty patient and passive today when it comes to trading, because I think tomorrow could be a very stale day, just leading into these bigger earnings as far as PayPal and AMD are concerned. Those are my big boys. Those are the ones I'm going to be primarily concerned with for the week. If AMD has a great earnings call, I do think NQ will rally, and I think NVIDIA will be the trade from there as well. So that's what I'm looking at. Also, if you want to look at something that did well today, ON, it was a semiconductor. They went straight up this morning when they announced that they beat. So looking at semiconductors, I think they're strong. I think momentum's behind them, specifically with the new bill that passed from the US. So I'm definitely not sleeping on them. AMD, probably one of my favorite trades going into tomorrow. I definitely think it can break highs and push towards $100. Keep it on your radar. Favorite stock to look at right now if you open up bullish. And the only reason, again, if I'm looking bullish, I make sure I repeat this stuff to you over and over so you don't misinterpret what I say. You're bullish over 13,000. You get above 13,000 on NQ, you are bullish. If you stay below this, you're just riding these higher lows and you got to be patient. That's what I'm doing. That's how I'm playing the market. See you tomorrow, traders. Also, too, I have to edit this back into the video. I totally forgot. But this Pelosi going to Taiwan, if you do not know, she's scheduled to be going there right now. I do not know, exactly where she is. Unfortunately, I don't have her on my radar, but this is definitely causing a lot of tension between China and US relations. We also know Biden just talked with President Xi over from China as well on Friday. And basically, Biden said they are quote unquote recognizing Taiwan's they're not an independent country. So this is really big in my opinion, and something that you got to be paying attention to, because this could absolutely make the market dip. So there's a lot of gray areas on the market right now, and as of right now, what I'm watching for, one, earnings, how they're going to affect the market, and then number two is what's happening with these key levels, because there's literally, again, so much happening. China's UN invoices Pelosi to visit Taiwan would undermine US-China relations. So if you see Pelosi back out of this, I would take that as a bullish sign, but also there's just so much going on right now. Again, that's why I'm on the edge of the fence, and that's why I am liquid.